Greetings, I'm Reverend John O'Toole, and I wish to share with you a story. It's not a made-up story, it's just a story. Once upon a time, and about a month or so ago, actually it's been about a month and a half, it really doesn't matter, because when you watch this, who knows when you're going to watch it. But for me, it was about a month and a half ago from the making of this video. So, I've been working on a lot of different things in my life and working on my health, of course, as a lot of us think we're doing, and I thought I was working well on my health. And a day came along, a rather interesting day. I happened to be having to have some wound care that we're working on, so I have a visiting nurse coming in, and I have some other services, and I was having some difficulty breathing all of a sudden over the last few days. So I've been kind of like taking a little assistance. I have some oxygen that I use when I'm sleeping, and I have the option to use it while I'm sitting around the house, being a couch potato or here in front of a camera. And so I found myself needing to be on oxygen a little bit more than I was. Now, interesting enough, several weeks ago, the time frame is important too, and I should tell you that. The time frame is, well, right now, today, is May 25th. But this all started in April. And prior to April was March. And in March, I had my physical with my primary. You have your physical once a year. You go in and they poke and prod, and poke and prod. And I'll leave it at that with the prodding. And you know how it goes. But this is during a particular time in our lifestyle that doesn't happen very often, and that's the virus. So my physical was not in person, so no poking and prodding. It was all virtual. The virtual poking and prodding. Now, I should point out that when I had my physical, I felt wonderful. Wonderful. And I had my physical, and we did some blood work, and he called me back and said, hey, we need to change your meds, and we changed my meds, and in a few weeks, I went from feeling wonderful to feeling not so wonderful, and I was having trouble breathing. And they said, if you're really having trouble, you should go to the hospital. And, I just kind of chalked it up to, the pollen starting to come out and that kind of thing. And then one day, on a Wednesday, I had some other treatments going on, and then after that I got up to go to the bathroom, and I was super dizzy, and the whole world was in a cloud, and I didn't even make it to the bathroom. I sat down in a chair in the bedroom and just sat there. And then when the nurse came, it actually was coming pretty soon, so it wasn't a long wait. Nurse came, I just kept saying, I'm in here. I says, okay. I'll get ready. No, I'm in here and I need help. So, needless to say, I didn't go to the bathroom, and as if you really want to know those kind of details, I went back to my in the living room where the nurse would usually change the dressing, and she was doing that kind of stuff, and she was supposed to get blood work. She couldn't get blood work. I couldn't get a good IV because I was dehydrated, and I was having trouble breathing, so I would put myself on the oxygen thing, and blood pressure was super low, under 100, or it was 100, and needless to say, I wasn't feeling well. And I called my daughter, and she came over and convinced me to call for an ambulance. And I really didn't want to. The idea of going to the hospital during the virus isn't scary enough. Going to the hospital just in general is scary, particularly if you have to go by, emergency versus a planned visit. And then, so the EMTs came and checked me out and determined that I really probably should go to the emergency room. And I'm a big guy. You could see that. There was no lying about that. So what had happened was that we tweaked around with my medications. There was one medication, according to the hospital, that I shouldn't have been on. It was a conflict with my other medications. Now, a year ago, the hospital prescribed that medication saying that I need to be on it. Things happen in a year. Things change. They don't bother updating you. They don't say, oh, all the people we prescribed that medication to, we should call our doctors up and tell them that they should be taken off of it. Well, that would be a sweet thing, particularly with computers. So what had going on, and it's actually been going on for quite some time, was that I was gradually retaining water. Retaining water is kind of an interesting thing. You feel bloated, or your feet are swelling up or something like that, and you think you're bloated. Those are the obvious signs, but retaining water within this area of your body, one of the signs is being able to check out your weight on a scale. But I didn't have a scale that would work for my weight. So I wasn't really watching it from that perspective. I was mostly watching my legs and how they are. And if my legs are pretty good, then I'm probably fine. Now, if I had my physical in the office, I don't think that the doctor would have noticed that I was having this issue. So, essentially what happened was that I was retaining so much water in my chest area, in the abdomen area, was that it was surrounding the heart and reducing the efficiency of the heart to pump enough blood for the body. So my blood pressure was low. So apparently I was probably heading towards a heart attack. It would probably be good to know that. I didn't know that at the time. It's a really useful thing. And because the heart was shutting down, it shut down my kidneys earlier in the day. That's why I really didn't have to pee. Didn't matter whether I made it to the bathroom because I hadn't actually peed all day, which is kind of a unique thing because being on a different medications, I tend to pee more often than other people do. So basically, they told me to drink lots of water, stay hydrated, which is not the good thing to say, but that was what was recommended. And so I was retaining fluid, and I was shutting down my heart. So, it's a funny thing because I actually have a DNR in place, a do not resuscitate. It's been there for a number of years, probably 4 or 5 years I've had that in place. And I've had that in place because I don't wish, I've been there with other loved ones that have been basically unconscious, and they would just waste away. And I don't wish that to happen to me. I don't want my children, and I have 2 daughters, and I don't want either one of them to have the responsibility to make that decision to terminate my life. And I think that they would tend to want to keep me living as long as possible in a bed, probably in a nursing home, probably not being treated very well. Because I've been in a nursing home, in rehab. I won't mention the hospital, or I won't mention the actual name of the facility. But they're all very much the same. They're all run by money, which that's what businesses do. They run their businesses by money. They're not running their businesses by humanity. So, you know, they don't pay top dollar for their employees for patient care, and they are understaffed, and the facilities might be lacking. Their foods are high in sodium because they use a lot of canned products. So they're not doing fresh stuff as often as they could. So, needless to say, I've been there and I know what it's like. And I don't really wish to put that responsibility on my kids to have to make the decision. One daughter would probably say, we have hope that he'll come out of this and all of a sudden be the bouncy, jolly person that you guys know and they know. So, I have a DNR in place. And it's basically not to go on the ventilator, because that's usually what puts you into the position where you're not coming back from. And that decision was made years ago, before there was a virus. So here I am sitting in my living room, in my chair, and I'm having to decide whether to go to the hospital or not. And I have, 4 EMTs, a couple of police officers, my daughter, the cats. I want to leave my cats at home alone. I can't do that. Well, we went to the hospital. First of all, to get out of here, there's 4 steps, and then there's 4 steps to leave the house. 4 steps, and then the porch, and then 4 steps out. They were trying to figure out how to get me out because I'm a big guy, and they can't really lift me down the stairs. And I know they have things like stair crawlers and stuff, but they don't really want to use that device on me. So, essentially what I did is I walked out of the house and got onto the gurney, and they put the gurney into the ambulance, and off we went. And it was a very miserable ride there. Now, I think that all rides in ambulances are miserable, but it was especially miserable because I was in a lot of pain, and I didn't know why I was in a lot of pain. And I really kind of felt like, when I reflect back, as I was, when you watch MASH and you got the patient up on the back of the Jeep and they're working on them and doing stuff. That's how I felt in the ambulance. It was bumpy and shaky, and I was, I had to have to wear a mask because everybody who enters into the hospital has to wear a mask just in case they have the virus. and they don't wish you to catch the virus in case it is floating around in a hospital. Now, the other interesting thing, which just really isn't advertised, they shut down visitors going to nursing homes, but they didn't shut down visitors going into hospitals. They didn't tell you that. So they told us before we left here that there won't be allowed any visitors in the hospital. So say goodbye to your father, and because you're not going to see him for a while. I'm on a BiPAP. I don't know if I've ever shared that, but I'm on a BiPAP. I've had a problem with sleeping my entire life. Not just since I've been overweight, although I've been overweight my entire life. But I know a lot of people that are thin that have sleep apnea. So you can blame it on being overweight, but it's also not necessarily a result of that. And so I grabbed my BiPAP, I grabbed a charging cable for my phone, and I had my phone, and I had what I was wearing, and which was my nightshirt. Don't tell anybody I wear a nightshirt. I tell you, sidebar here, whoever decided that we're not going to wear night shirts anymore was a fool. If you're looking for something to wear that's comfy, wear a nightshirt. You can wear it around the house all day long if you don't have to go out, and if they're very comfortable. I can't see anything more comfortable than that. Well, maybe being naked, but you know, this is New England. You can't be naked all the time. So I was wearing my nightshirt and grabbed my BiPAP and my charging cable and my phone, and off we went. And went down and got into the ambulance, and we went off, and it seemed like it was forever in the ambulance before we got to the hospital. I had called my other daughter to tell her that I was going there, and she actually went down because they weren't going to let her in. She was at the dock for the ER, and but oddly enough, the timing, they had an emergency coming in from the prison, so they didn't allow her near me because it was swarming with prison guards and a prisoner. So unfortunately, she didn't get to see me. I didn't actually know that she was there. She told me about this later. But I'm just sharing everything in little drops and pieces. Do you think I've been thinking about this whole story for a while? It's unscripted for sure. But I have been thinking about it, the presentation, for quite some time. So into the emergency room we go. I got a mask on and oxygen, and by that time they have a lot of details about me, but it's interesting, because I was in a tremendous amount of pain. Most of my pain was in my legs. It wasn't really anywhere else in my body, but my legs. And I kept asking him, can I sit up for a little bit and put my legs down, because I really need to move around. I need to move around. And they wouldn't let me move around. And that was probably the worst part, because I couldn't move around. My butt was sore because the beds are horrible to lie in, and my legs hurt a lot because I was lying down, and I don't usually lie down completely. I sleep kind of in a recline position. So, needless to say, it was very uncomfortable, and I was very conscious for a great deal of the time in the ER. And they would ask me questions. They asked me a lot of questions about the DNR. Some people think that if you get a DNR, you kind of lose all your rights. But you don't, because they ask you the questions about it over and over and over again. And they want to know for sure that you actually want a DNR in place, that if it gets to that point where, you know, you're either going to go into a coma or go into a coma and die, that you're given that option. And so they would keep asking me questions about that kind of thing. And they, you know, they already know who next of kin is, and daughters, and they can call and be in contact with them. And they were, you know, they, to me, the hospital, which is in the area, it's Berkshire Medical Center. To me, they treated me very well there. I wasn't surprised about how well they treated me, but I was surprised that everybody, down to the people that swept the floors, were extremely nice. So I was in the emergency room for a long time. As a matter of fact, a neighbor, a friend of one of my daughter's boyfriend actually was working in the ER. He came in, hey, it's me, and I'm looking at him going, who the heck are you? I didn't say that, but I'm like, oh yeah, you know who I am? And then I go, oh, I think I know. You know, not that I care, because I'm just in a lot of pain. I keep asking them for water. They wouldn't give me any water. My mouth was dry, and I understand they want to do blood work and they want to see what's going on. Oh, well, I understand it now. They could have said that. We need to wait till the blood work comes back so we can figure out what to do with you. And we need to find out whether you have the virus. Because if you have the virus, we have to treat you in a certain way. And if you don't have the virus, you've got something else going on, then we need to look at that. So they test you for the virus. If you're going in the emergency room, they probably pretty much test everybody, because they have to know how to deal with you as you flow through the hospital. If you have the virus, you're going to go into isolation units everywhere as you're getting better or worse. And if you don't have the virus, they can let back on that isolation a little bit. So at some point in time, I was unconscious, and because one of the issues that had come up was that my potassium had skyrocketed. So they ended up doing dialysis, and I had to agree to the dialysis. And I'm pretty sure I verbally agreed to it before I heard them talking about it, and they said, we could do this, and it's your choice whether we do it, but I think it's the best bet, or something like that. And I said, they probably wanted me to sign it, and I know they said normally we'd have you sign it, but you're not in a position to sign it, so I'm going to sign for you. But heard your consent, and I find that whole procedure rather interesting, because I have accepted the fact, or I've accepted the feelings around moving on, about passing on, about basically dying, and I don't have any fear about it. Most of my fear is around, or it's not so much fear, it's just emotions. My emotions around it is how it'll affect my daughters. They're really the only people in my life that I care about to that extent. Now, there are other people in my life I care about. I'm not going to say that necessarily, but they're the ones. My number one peoples in my life are my two daughters. So that's, one concern. But the reality around suffering and being in a coma, or such a vegetable, for example, or whatever the state is, I don't wish to be in that position and waste away and just waste away and just waste away. I don't wish that. So I've come to peace with the fact that I have risks, like just with this virus going on, the coronavirus, I'm in a high risk state. I got diabetes, I'm overweight, I have heart issues, I have this, I have that, I have this, I have that, I have this, I have that, I have this. If you look at my portal online, it's a list of issues, but I do well. I mean, I get by. I have good doctors and I get by. I just said I've accepted the fact that I could move on and I will, go to God and go up to heaven and I'll do my thing and then I'll probably come back as another being down the road and, work on the issues that I didn't finish working on in this lifetime, which of course is love, because most people are working on love, and that's an issue that I've been working on most of my life. So I'll probably work on that a little more in my next lifetime. And so they ended up, at some point in time, they put in a special artery, special thing in my neck. They had to go into the vein. I also kind of remember that procedure a little bit of them putting this thing in. It has an IV that has like 3 things on it so that they can pump in and pump out at the same time and stuff like that. That's to do the dialysis, and that stays in until you're almost ready to leave the hospital, just in case they need to do multiple dialysis applications. So at that point in time, I think I conked out, and they did their thing, and I woke up in intensive care, and in intensive care, well, they still hadn't known whether they didn't really know what I had. They thought I had a virus of some sort. They had tested me for corona, and then they tested me for other things. And they were working on the heart stuff, and they were working on the kidney stuff. And so were they thinking that I might still have the virus? They said that they were putting me in a special room that had blowers, to the outside air. So they're not circulating air in the hospital anymore. They suck the air probably out from the roof, goes down into the systems, goes into the rooms in intensive care and in probably the emergency room and probably the step down unit. I don't know what else. I only know where I went. And then they have fans that are inside the rooms blowing air outside the hospital from that room, so that any infectious disease floating in the air is going to go out to the outside air and hopefully be destroyed by nature, because that's what nature does. Cleans the air and sanitizes it and then gives it back to us. So these rooms are kind of like being in a wind tunnel. But I was in intensive care for a while. They got me stable. They hadn't decided whether they wanted to do another dialysis or not. They're still waiting to see. But at some point they decided that I was bouncing back well enough to go to the step down unit. And they had me on a liquid diet. Now the liquid diet was pudding, great thing for diabetics, and yogurt and applesauce, and they had cream of wheat, which was really good. Actually, if you go to the hospital, order the cream of wheat for breakfast and a maple syrup, and then add the two together, because that's really good. They would give me this soup, chicken noodle soup, and they would puree it. The grossest thing you could ever think about is pureeing cream. I just said, give me the broth, just clear broth, and they wouldn't give me clear broth. It took a while to get clear broth because you had to ask the right doctor. If you ask the wrong doctor, you're not going to get it to happen. So, just clear broth would be fine. Now they wanted to give you something more to it. Well, I'm not going to eat it if it's disgusting. Now, one of the side effects of the dialysis is it gives you like a metal taste in your mouth. And one of the other side effects to the dialysis was that I was sick to my stomach and nauseous and throwing up. So for 2 days I would eat and then throw up. I would eat, throw up, you know. It was kind of interesting. And they actually acted like they'd never seen it before. Really? You're throwing up? I don't know what would cause that. I have no idea. When I was put into a room with another person that also had dialysis, he started throwing up, you know, I don't know, about 8 hours or so after dialysis is, you know. So I think it's a symptom. You know, down the road I found out that it was a symptom. Or a side effect to the dialysis is that you might be nauseous and throwing up. Went on for a couple of days. So they had me on the liquid diet for a while. And they got me stable. And went over into the step-down unit, which, you know, was 2 rooms. Now, the rooms that people had the virus, you could tell, because if you could see down in the hallway, you could see that when they go in, when the nurses and staff go into a room that has the virus, they have to gown up. So the nurses and the you know, the CNAs and the cleaning crews, anybody that's going into your rooms in the step-down unit and also intensive care are completely gowned from head to toe. You see the eyes, and that's all you see, you know. If you don't know somebody's by their voice, or you can't see their tag, their name tag, you're not going to keep track of one to the other. You may not even tell which ones are men or which ones are women. You know, if you're there for a while, you start to realize the sounds of their voices and stuff. But it's funny because many of them are wearing safety glasses also over their glasses if they're wearing glasses, and if they're not wearing glasses, they're wearing safety glasses. And this is to protect them, and it's to protect them from other patients. You know, it's not like you're objecting to it. It's just something you're not really used to. So, and then when they go into a room that has the virus, then they have to gown up even more so that they can take that off when they leave the room. And they're always wearing gloves, of course. And yeah, it's interesting and it's different. And it was nice. It was actually kind of nice to not have visitors in the hospital, because you basically lose all your function of modesty when you're in there, because, you know, so then I went to the step-down unit, and when I was in intensive care, I was in a room all by myself. And then they moved me out of intensive care because I graduated. I got a little bit better. They went to the step-down unit, and they moved me into a room that I had a room. I was all by myself. I didn't have anybody with it, which was nice. But you know, I was asking for a chair, because if I could sit up normally, I could start feeling better. And I can't sit up normally in those beds. It's impossible. So I kept asking for a chair to sit on, and I eventually got the chair. But I moved into a room that had one bed in it, so that was nice. But within hours, I was moved out of it again into a room with two beds, and I was put up near the bathroom. Saying, "Great, I'll be able to go in and use the bathroom when I can get up out of bed." And then they moved me over one because I had a you know, you meet all kinds of personalities when you're in a hospital, and your roommates can be kind of a unique personality. So I was over there next to the bathroom in the room, and you know, the other person went into the other position near the door. He had this odd habit of sleeping nude. Now, I guess that's fine if you're home in your own room, but if you're in a hospital where people are walking by your room all day long, you know, or even just in general, it's kind of inappropriate, don't you think? So, you know, they used the excuse that he was going to be put on dialysis and they wanted to have the space in the back of the room. But I think the real reason they moved him was because of his odd behavior, and that way the staff wouldn't be exposed to that, except when they had to go in to help him out with stuff. And you know, I just kept the curtain closed because I didn't want to see that stuff. I mean, I don't, you know. So, you know, we didn't talk at all, so it didn't really matter. It wasn't like we were buddies. But you know, it's just funny how, you know, there's a lot of devotion to taking care of people in a hospital, and being disrespectful to them in such a way is really kind of nasty. You know, it's just a nasty thing to do. So, at any rate, he ended up being put on dialysis too, and they went through that procedure with him. And I think he was going to go for a second one after I left because they weren't able to get his levels down for what it was. But he was also heading for a respirator because he was having trouble keeping his mask on and his oxygen on, and his levels were getting up too high and his oxygen was getting too low. And that is, of course, is not a great thing. He didn't have the virus, he just had other complications that were causing issues. And so, you know, I don't know what ended up happening with him, because eventually I graduated from the step-down unit and went up to the 4 West, which is, it's all really on the same level. You know, it's interesting. You know, it's interesting about how they built the hospital, but they built it in sections. So there's a part to the building where they built a new wing to it, but they're like, I don't know, they're not a whole, they're like a half a floor off of each other. I mean, why did they just add something to it from the basement so that they all lined up? It's weird. So you go from the step down unit area and you have to take a ramp, I think up or down. I don't know. It's either up or down, but it's not enough to be a whole floor. So there's a ramp that you have to go to get from one level to the other, but it's still the 4th floor. It's just, how the architects explained it and convinced people to do it this way. It's kind of beyond me. But 4 West was interesting because once you're away from the virus, the hospital kind of goes back to normal. They're still wearing masks and they're still wearing gloves, but they're not wrapped up, as a Christmas present. So you could see their face, you could see the color of their hair. They're wearing different types of hospital attire, but it's not wrapped up in a bow like you would see on the other units. And you know, it's just interesting. It's just totally different. You know, the people delivering your food are, you know, they're just wearing their usual attire, and you know, it's you can identify people by the way they look, and not just by the way they talk, and it's a little more relaxed. So you know, I moved over into that unit, and now they're playing with my my medications, and they're adding things back in that I take at home. Of course, the one medication they stopped, and actually there was another medication they stopped, and you know, it was you know, at home I live in Beckett, and Beckett has no cable TV. So if we want to watch TV, we have to have an antenna, or we have to have satellite. So well, I have an antenna, but I have some issues with it. And because of my mobility issues, I haven't been able to bring it down and figure out what's wrong with it. Excuse me. So, I basically watch everything on the internet. I can watch, you know, CBS or ABC or NBC on the internet, and I have Amazon Prime, of course, and I have Netflix. So those are the things I watch, and I'm a movie addict because I like filmmaking. I find that because it's not topic. When I watch NBC or CBS or something like that, I get commercials, but they're kind of normal commercials. But here I'm 15 days in a hospital watching nothing but cable TV. And every bank of commercials has at least a couple of food commercials. Not food like, you know, food. It's takeout or, you know, restaurant food. It's just, you just get bombarded with all this crap. Crap that I'll never eat again because I have issues with certain things, particularly is sodium. And so, needless to say, you're watching constant TV. Now, I guess if I had a smartphone with me, I could watch the internet, but I didn't. I have a flip phone, so I wasn't watching the internet on my own device. And you don't have visitors coming in, so it's not like they can bring you in an iPad, or if I had something. I have a Amazon device, but so, you know, you're watching this junk. I mean, it's just junk. I don't know how people watch just cable. It's unbelievable amount of junk. I think I watch Bar Rescue a lot. I watch the news a little bit. You can only take so much news. Slept a little bit, didn't sleep a little bit, you know. I wasn't mobile until like the last few days, too much. But I did have a chair that I could sit in, and sitting in a chair was made a lot for me to bounce back. So so basically, you know, part of the problems with it was, of course, one of the things I was looking forward to was eventually I was on a Foley, on a catheter the whole time, or at some point, once they got the kidneys working again, they had to get the catheter in because I was peeing a lot. And they were measuring it, everything coming out. They measured stuff more or less going in, and more or less, they were measuring everything going out because they wanted to make sure that I was outputting enough fluid. And so it was on the catheter, and one of the things I was looking forward to was getting back to the bathroom. It was what I was looking forward to. And, you know, it was just the thing I was thinking about. You know, Trump's on there urging people to make ventilators, you know, arm and leg, you know, tons of ventilators, so there's plenty to go around to the country, and we can give them away to other countries that need them. Well, the other thing they should be making is commodes, because some of these bathrooms in these hospitals are from like the 1800s. They're low, they're really low, and they're small, and they're up against the wall, and only people that are, you know, 120 pounds or less can use them. It's just, you know, you got a disease here that's affecting overweight people, and you got bathrooms that people can't use. And that's kind of a dignity problem. It's not so much modesty, it's dignity. And that, you know, really bothered me a lot, was having a bathroom that I couldn't use. It was, yeah, it was, you know, oh no, all the commodes are used up, there aren't any available. Well, that's insane. It's insane. How can you not have them? You know, the staff in the 4 West group, they are, of course, wonderful. They're just as wonderful as have been treated all along. And they're very helpful. And they eventually got me up and walking so I could start moving around. So, you know, I reached a point where I can start looking at a time where I can go home. And, but, you know, I was looking forward to coming home to my bathroom. I have a bathroom that's handicap accessible, and it's high, and it's got railings, and it's not crammed up against the wall, and you know, it's those little things. Just to restore somebody back to their livelihood. You know, one of the options they gave me was to go back to a rehab center. Now, maybe in a perfect world, a rehab center may have been an option to some people, but to me, it's like a death camp. You know, people are being sent there that have the virus. People there have the virus. People have the virus. They can't go to the hospital because, you know, their conditions are such that, you know, unless they're not breathing, they're not going to go to the hospital. So, plus you don't know who has it. Just because they shut down visitors from going in doesn't mean that the staff doesn't have the virus. Doesn't mean that, you know, well, it's basically staff, but, you know, there are other people that do get in there, doctors, you know, you don't know who has it. So, you know, it gets into it, and there's been, of course, reports of, you know, nursing homes having in the area that have reported cases, and, you know, going over there, it would just put me backwards. Here I'm out of the bed, I'm into a chair, I can get up and walk around. When I go over to that facility, they don't have any big butt chairs. Now I can call it a big butt chair because I got a big butt. But other people might be offended. But they don't have chairs in the rooms that are for people that have a big butt. They're for people that have tiny butts. So I'd be stuck in the bed, which means I'd go backwards again. I can't walk the hallways because the virus is going to restrict people's movement. So I'll be stuck in a room. You know, what's good is that? I could go home and I have all my care available to me. I just have to get up those 4 flights and those other 4 flights, which was hard. It was very hard. It was amazingly hard. They had me working, proving them I can walk and climb and all kinds of stuff all afternoon, and then I go home and I really didn't have the energy. I needed like a few hours sleep before I could actually do the climb. But I got the climb, we got up the stairs, and you know, I'm moving around on my own. It didn't actually take long for me to start moving around. I was actually moving around on my own pretty quickly, actually. So I bounced back and changed my food plan, and yeah, I've been continually to work on improving myself. I've changed my diet. I've really eating a very low diet. I don't eat any tomatoes, but that's a tough thing to give up because you're giving up ketchup, you're giving up tomato sauce, you're giving up, anything that has tomatoes in it. You're giving up grilled cheese and tomatoes, which we're coming into that season now, folks. Apparently, I can have a grilled cheese and tomato if I want one. I just can't eat the whole tomato. I can't eat 4 or 5 grilled cheese and tomatoes at once. That's the only problem. But, yeah. I've changed the diet and I've been losing weight. I've lost, in water weight, I've probably lost over 30 pounds since I've been home. And that's been about a month. It's kind of amazing me is that I've stored up so much water in my body that it has all this extra weight. So I don't know where my bottom will be, where I reach a point where I'm not losing any more. But I don't really miss it all that much. I don't drink a lot of water. I keep to like a half a gallon of water-ish a day, including foods that have a lot of water in it. And getting better at eating a better diet. And it's a little bit of work, but yeah, I'm happy and I'm feeling better. I'm getting off of the oxygen as I'm moving around. When I exert myself a lot, I need the oxygen. I need it, of course, sleeping and stuff. But it's definitely bouncing back. I've been working on videos, and it's my passion is of being a filmmaker, and yeah, and things have been moving along quite well. So, I just wanted to share this experience with you people, just to kind of give you an idea about what to expect when you go in there. People, I've been a lot of people talk about their experience with death example, and I really, when people will say to me, well, aren't you glad you went into the hospital? Aren't you glad this? Aren't you glad that? I really kind of don't want to talk about it because there is no perspective. You can't really, unless you're talking to somebody who's been through it, it doesn't really mean anything. And you're trying to share emotions with people that have no idea what's going on with you. So, but this way kind of gives you something to expect, not to expect, but you say, well, what if I this or what if that? Well, I kind of told you how I experienced it for me. I'm a big guy. I was a task for them. It was they'd have to move me around, and until I was able to move myself around, they had to help me, and they had to do a lot of that work. But I'm happy now. I'm moving around better. Sometimes I forget my walker. I have a rollator that I move around the house in, and sometimes I forget that I forget to bring it with me, which is a good sign. The weather's nice. I could get outside and sit in the sun. Can't do that in a nursing home. Not easily, anyway. And certainly not now with the lockdown. So, I feel sorry for people that are in nursing homes. I'm sorry that they're there. They need a lot of prayer. Of course, there's also no clergy. That was something that surprised me, that there was no clergy that came around on Sunday. That was really a surprise. And I was looking forward to that. They could just gown up like everybody else and come in. I don't know why they weren't. But I hope you listened to my story. And of course, if you have any comments, you can always post them on YouTube if you wish, or send them to the station and tell CBS CTSB, don't ever let that guy on the air again. He's depressing. So, as for that, I wish everybody a healthy day. Get outside and dig in some dirt or work on your plants in the house, because digging in dirt is told to be very therapeutic and healthy and helps build up your immune system. So folks, go dig in some dirt or maybe have a mud wrestling contest and keep 6 feet apart from everybody else. Ta-ta! Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da.